Thank you for joining TikTok, Facebook, and Zoom. Today is the third day of the 3-day challenge bond for business performance. Uh, you're going to learn strategies. This is aimed at businesses, business owners, and supervisors of caregivers. Learn strategies for boosting client satisfaction, uh, reducing burnout, and build a high performance caregiving team. What are we going to talk about these 3 days? We've been talking about how the bond method will transform your caregiving situation and improve your teamwork and caregiver communication. Bond stands for bond with your fellow caregivers and patients. O, optimize good health habits. N, nurture a strong caregiving team. Build a team and keep it strong. And then D, document patient actions and caregiving actions. I'm going to start with a case history here. I'm going to stop the share so you can see my face bigger. Uh, the caregiver just finished the training, and the problem is he's treating every patient the same. Uh, he's kind of a serious person, and he did learn the training well, and he's just following the training. You know, since he's new at it, kind of like a robot, not really a robot, but very systematic, very logical. Okay. It works with some patients. Some patients are happy. They like a formal type of person. But other people want relaxed. They want humorous. Other people want empathy, love, and compassion. So some patients complain that the caregiver was too formal and he comes off as arrogant. Of course, the caregiver didn't want to be arrogant, but the caregiver was just trying to be very logical and systematic and follow word for word what his training was. So immediately the supervisor came and talked to him. Please um, reflect back what the patients are telling you. Oh, you're lonely today. I see you're lonely. Oh, you're angry about the food. Oh, I see. Uh, you're you're confused about what's going on. This is breakfast. So by the caregiver reflecting back the patient's um, the patient's image emotions, they feel more relaxed and more in contact with the caregiver. Okay, so now I'm going to stop the share. I'm learning how to do Zoom here. Start the share again. Uh, Here's a video that tomorrow is not guaranteed. Even though your business is doing well today, even though your caregiving is good today, something can happen tonight. I had a patient fell and she got the cut had 11 stitches and she fractured the scapula, this bone way in the back here. So caregiving can change overnight. The urgency of caregiving. Did you know that every minute many people develop a heart attack, they fall, new dementia? You need to be prepared for this. Without proper training, caregivers can unintentionally cause harm or worsen their loved one's condition, and they may worsen their own condition. I've had 2 caregivers die while taking care of their loved one. Learn to use a communication board to improve communication in dementia. Learn to do a health assessment in someone with a heart attack. Remember to prevent falls. After one fall, they're more likely to have another fall. Don't be reactive, be proactive. The urgency of part of this 3-day program is to avoid the cycle of high employee turnover. Nobody likes high turnover. The other caregivers, they don't like a new caregiver coming in. The patients, especially, they like to see the same person. They like to get to know the person. The supervisor doesn't like to keep training, hiring, rehiring, interviewing. So nobody likes start. So that's one of the goals here. Here's the cycle on this. You have a new hire, poor work conditions, high stress, the caregiver quits. Supervisor advertise, rehires a new caregiver, then the supervisor has to train them. The other caregivers have to do some training too, so they're upset. They want to do their work. They don't want to train someone else. So we're trying to prevent the cycle going over and over, repeating herself. Leela, would you like to just give a brief, 1 minute? Um, uh, let me turn. Please unmute your screen. If you could just give a little testimonial how it's going with your husband. You can talk now.
Okay. Hello.
Hi,
This is hi. I don't see myself on the camera though.
I can see
Anyway,
you.
okay, fine. Okay. Well, I have really enjoyed going through Dr. Carlos's 3-day training because my husband has early onset dementia. And the thing that I've really enjoyed is his encouragement that we're not alone in this. There's a caregiving community and there's help. And what I've especially enjoyed is the emphasis on self care. So I go to the YMCA. I work out as many times as I can. I run. And so I'm keeping myself healthy to keep him healthy. Also, to have a positive attitude with dealing with him. And I've listened to some of this other caregiving programs, which I've really enjoyed all the information about lifting because I also have a handicapped son. So those were very good reminders. So far, this has been very beneficial. My husband has made really good progress, and he was even able to visit me, Houston with me for my 45th class reunion, which he really enjoyed. So it's making life so much better to learn all this
Yay.
bond method. I'm trying to implement it. The other thing that I really liked was the documentation because yesterday I had a telehealth with my son's doctor, and Dr. Carlos tells us to write everything down, all the medications, what are the highest concerns, and it went so smoothly. And at the end, I said, I wrote all this down. He says, I could tell. And he was really impressed with it, and we got the telehealth done really fast.
Very good. Now you have
Yes.
one caregiver come in or two caregivers come in and help your husband and your son.
Yes, I have a fantastic support system. I have one lady come in once or twice a week, and I do have a nurse come in to see Miguel 3 times a week. She also helps, watch after Manuel at the same time.
What do you do to support those caregivers to make those caregivers want to keep coming back so they don't quit? Of course, you wouldn't like it if you have a different caregiver every week. What do you
Oh,
do
no.
to support
Yeah.
them?
Okay, these are long-standing caregivers. The nurse is paid for by the state through my son's insurance. And then the other caregiver, I do pay her, but I also give her things like bonuses. Recently, I got her a SeaWorld pass because she had people come up from Mexico to go to SeaWorld. And with that pass, she was able to get 2 of them in for free. So she was just thrilled with that. I said, well, that's your bonus for helping me so much. And so when I go on trips, I try to bring back souvenirs from Bucky's, my favorite place. So I try to keep them happy.
Very good. That's a very good support system you have. And
Yes.
how long have you had this caregiver?
Well,
Uh,
both of them have been with me for 20 years because
oh
my
my
my son
God.
has been handicapped for 43 years. So
So
at least
you
20
must
years.
be very supportive because the average employee doesn't stay with you for 20 years.
Oh, yes. My motto is treat them like family. And
Okay.
that's what they feel, that they're part of the family.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Leela. I'm going to mute you. Thank you so much.
Did it pause? It kind of froze on my end.
Oh, it was very good. Thank you.
What happened? Okay, it froze. I don't know.
Okay. Get back to my slides.
Okay. Should I mute? Let's
Yes,
see.
mute.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I will do that.
Getting back to business bond. This is before the training for businesses. There's poor communication, poor relationships, poor teamwork. Then you optimize self care. There's poor, the caregivers are not taking care of themselves. Uh, uh, I see that Francis is on with us, or he's going to be on. Francis, if you could join the Zoom meeting, please. Um, and then N for nurture the team. There was poor teamwork. This is before the training, and then after the training, there's poor documentation of patients and caregiver actions. Now I have a question from the audience. Um, will this training turn my caregivers into superheroes, or will they still call me for every problem? Haha, it's kind of funny question, but thank you for asking. No, they won't be superheroes, but maybe they can be a mini hero that could be better than last week. At the beginning, when you first hire a caregiver, you want them to call you for every little problem. But hopefully, after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, they only call you for the major problems. Uh, and if the caregiver keeps calling you for the same problem over and over, oh, the patient's angry, what do I do? And they just asked you yesterday, the patient's angry, what do I do? Well, then you need more training or documentation or written material to for that caregiver. But you should always, if you have a feeling that the caregiver wants more training, step in there and do that training right away. Do not abandon the caregiver and say, I don't have time to train you, or you're not smart enough. You should have learned it already. No, you need to be very supportive, especially at the beginning of uh, their work with you. Uh, Ray, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Um, can you text Francis? I don't see him on the Zoom so that he can come and give his presentation.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. So this slide is before uh, business bond. And now after business bond, there's a good relationship between the caregivers. There's a good relationship with the caregiver and the patients, and the caregiver and the supervisor. The caregivers optimize self-care and health habits. Um, eating healthy, like this young woman eating an apple. And even though you don't lose weight the first day of your healthy diet, you do get a better focus and more energy when you're eating healthy. You nurture a strong team. The training is about teamwork and how to best communicate with your other team members. And so the stronger the team, the stronger the the better the work goes. And then documentation, the patient actions, patient deterioration, and you document caregiver actions. The patient fell, so you document the patient fell. Then the caregiver documents what they did when the patient fell. So the family comes in, oh my God, my mother fell down. Well, this is what happened, and this is what we did to help your mother. There is an urgency in caregiving training. Don't wait till something bad happens, till a caregiver quits or your company gets into trouble. Prepare ahead of time. Training and caregiver communication, further caregivers, patients, and the families. And also, the caregiving training is also to avoid lawsuits. Lawsuits can be very expensive, can be up to $100,000 in cost. And here is some information about building a team. Building a team is so important with caregiving in a home provider service situation, or in a facility situation, nursing home, assisted living. There's 4 types of team development: team training, learning to become a team; improving team competency. What do you do about falls, anger, not taking medicine? You need to set good goals. Okay, team, the goal is not to have any falls for the next week. Team, the goal is to, if there's an anger situation, address it right away. Okay, the team is goal is to increase protein intake for the caregivers. So very specific goals, and then of course you reward the caregivers if they accomplish these goals. Number two, leadership training. Uh, this can be just the supervisor, or it can be the caregivers that have been there for a longer period of time. Leaders need to focus on communication, needed to focus on empathy with the caregiver, find out how the caregiver works, what their reactions are. Are they do they learn by reading? Do they learn by watching? Do they learn by hearing? A leader needs to do conflict resolution, conflict with other uh, caregivers, conflict with the patient, conflict with the family. Uh, one facility that I work with, they have a policy that when the family is upset, that the supervisor is with the caregiver as they explain to the family what happened and try to calm the family down, explain how they're trying to improve the situation. There's team building. So once the team is trained, then how you can make it stronger. This includes psychological safety. The team members are feel safe to ask questions, to to bring up their concerns, to give a suggestion of what they should do in this situation. The team members need to be committed to teamwork, and there needs to be a shared leadership. That okay, this caregiver is an expert in nutrition. Will help others with nutrition. This expert is good with the families, so we'll have them take the lead with families. And then team debriefing. So four types of team development: team training, leadership training, team building, and finally team debriefing. This has to do with signing out the end of the shift. Remember, Mr. Smith fell down. Please watch him again. He doesn't fall again. You write down case reviews, patient falling, not eating, anger. You write them down, and then weekly or monthly meetings, you talk about these situations, how to improve them, how to prevent them. You in the team debriefings, you talk about positive behaviors and congratulate the caregivers about positive, and you talk about negative behaviors and how can be improved. Remember, never criticize a team member in front of others. Take them alone by themselves to give them suggestions. In general, don't criticize, but especially do it alone. Okay, um, we have Francis here, and I'm going to unmute him, and he's going to talk more about uh, team member interactions and teamwork. So, Francis,
Hey
you need to
everyone.
unmute. Okay, thank you, Francis, for helping.
Of course, thank you for having me. May I request to share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Do I have to unshare, Ray? I
Yes,
think
you
I
I
have
have.
to
believe
stop sharing
so.
your slides so that someone else can.
Okay, you can share now,
Okay,
Francis.
okay. I just sent a request. Okay, there you go. Okay.
Okay, I can see it. Can you make
Yes,
your
I
screen a little bigger?
yes, I will play this. Allow me to. There you go.
Okay, yes, there you
Okay.
go. Boom, bada boom. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the value of training and or training your caregiving team. So I like to discuss the value of training in general. So it's not limited to caregivers, but your multidisciplinary team. And one of the values of doing this is very simple. It's like a sports team, right? When you have a sports team, typically you have a playbook that you guys go by. And this playbook is what differentiates your team versus the next team or the team before. And what makes the team successful is having a successful coach who can carry out a successful team playbook. In the same way, you get all of your players to read that playbook so they all know their roles. They know what their roles are. They know what the scope of their practices. They know the boundaries and so on. So, for instance, when you have a new hire, to set them up for an advantage, you have a new hire, and let's say you have 5 veteran caregivers. That new hire can't be expected to know everything the 5 veteran caregivers know. So one of the most important things to do is actually to have an employee manual where you have a list of things that you can check off. These are the skills that are minimum skills required for you to know. So let's say my new caregiver, his name is Chris. Okay, Chris, welcome to your first day with the team. This is our goal for this is our goal in training. I want you to learn how to execute proper body mechanics during transfers. I want you to learn more attentive and empathetic communication. I want you to be able to exercise kindness and patience. And most importantly, I want you to ensure that you know aftercare for your patient. By outlining those things and then telling him and training him to be able to do those things, you set him up for success. So when we want to build a skilled and knowledgeable workforce, we look at 3 things. It's comprehensive training, which we talked about with Chris earlier. Now, after we taught Chris all 4 of those basic skills, we then teach him, okay, Chris, now maybe we can teach you more advanced skills, like such as um, maybe wound care, how to care for when I say wound care, how to care for a patient who's diabetic and who may have cuts and bruises. Um, by teaching them a new skill, you also you empower them so that they know that, okay, when I am a caregiver for them, I'm not only limited to this task, but I can actually learn more. And that opens the door for them to develop skills. And as we do that, because we are investing in them and showing them that we are interested in their growth and we are giving them direction, it allows us, it allows better retention overall. What happens when we do that? Well, we improve overall patient outcomes and satisfaction. So imagine Chris is now taking care of patient X, or let's give patient X his name Hector. So Chris is taking care of Hector. And what happens now? Because Chris was well equipped and well trained by his supervisor and by the onboarding staff, he now has access to better care quality altogether. He understands how he can be more personal, how he can be more compassionate, how he can help the patient in better ways because he was equipped by it. Now, because of that, he can improve his communication overall because he can be confident in what he's doing. He can be confident in what he's saying. And confidence here is key. With everyone who's here will probably understand that when somebody's talking to you and they're unsure, it's very difficult to trust them with what you want. If I was on the receiving end, if I was Hector and Chris wasn't sure how to move me, I would be very stiff and guarded, and I don't think I'd be comfortable for him to touch me. And that could lead me to be either being very withdrawn or be very combative. Now, because of that, as we have improved communications, we can also have more proactive interventions. And the good thing is that because communication here is the central part also, as well as preparation, we then get to understand certain needs. For instance, if we say something and all of a sudden our patient is apprehensive, we can then tell him, okay, well, what can we do to make you more comfortable? And then you can get ahead of it by saying that, well, why don't we try this today instead? Because by giving them alternatives and because we know better, because we have a better idea. And all of this stems from having a playbook to play out of or to read from and a patient manual that we come up for. And that's the purpose of this whole series. It's to help understand how we can develop that playbook for our caregivers. Now, because we are investing the time into our caregivers, we are equipping them well. we are helping them understand their roles, and we are giving them potential for growth, we then have an engaged workforce. We then show that there's an opportunity for you to become, to have an advanced, or career advancement rather. So maybe you start off as a rookie in the beginning, but then eventually you could be the one who's training the other caregivers. So there's a direction to aspire towards. And then maybe you could be the supervisor who manages the other caregivers. By doing so, you're empowering your employee to have a very positive culture because now they're looking forward to something. They're inspired to try harder because they know there's a direction to move in. And it's not just a job to clock in and clock out of. But the thing that is most underappreciated here is that overall, because of our retention, it saves us money because then we don't have to worry about training and retraining people or even just onboarding new people because we are just being reactive. So the idea here behind having a proactive management and overall a training manual for your staff is so that you can prepare them for the things to come and they're not becoming reactionary. What we really want to avoid is reactionary management of our patient. And we want everything to be thoughtful and purposeful. So we'll talk about a simple case before I pass the mic back on. Let's say Chris is taking care of Hector. Now, Chris, as a new hire, because Dr. Herrera maybe gave him a manual and said, "Okay, Chris, these are going to be your guidelines. I want you to go through this checklist. This is going to be your scope of practice, and this is what we're going to be doing. You'll be working with Evans, who is going to be the other caregiver here. You will be reporting all of your findings from this evening to Evans so that he'll be aware of what we're going to do the next day, and so on." Now, Chris says, "Okay, I'm going to check that off my list." Now, next, Dr. Hara teaches him, "All right, Chris, these are the proper body mechanics and how you're going to move him when you need to change his bedpan, when you need to ensure that he's clean from soiling himself, and so on." Okay, Chris is like, "Okay, I now know what to do. I'm going to be able to do that." Now, Dr. Harrell will talk to him. "Okay, Chris, you've been doing really well. And if you continue to do so, I think there's an opportunity for you to be the one to train the next person that we hire." "Oh, great. I'm going to continue trying to further my skill. I want to learn more. I want to learn how to refine this so that I can actually be the one to train the next person." And then after training maybe the few people for the next few months, Dr. Hara goes back to him and says, "Chris, you've been doing a really good job. I think I want to make you the head trainer for all of the onboarding caregivers, or maybe you could be the supervisor for this particular section. Because I believe that what you're doing is in line with our company values, and you've really been taking this manual to heart. And I think there might be opportunity for us to grow this even further." Now, Dr. Herrera, as the person who has trained him and has been able to help him grow, sees that Chris is now much more invested in his job, and he is more excited to do something because he has now progression. And it's not just a clock in, clock out job for him, but it then becomes a career. And so this then feeds into the overall cost savings because even if even if he is the one who is moving up in the ladder and training and retraining people, he's saving Dr. Herrera time that he can spend seeing other patients or taking care of other things so that he doesn't have to be the one who's problem solving every time. And that's the beauty of this whole model. By being able to do something proactively, it saves us the time for having to troubleshoot because we'll have less problems overall. So I hope this helps everyone else in the group. I'll leave these
Yeah,
slides here.
yeah. Thank you very much, Francis. I have a question about your slides.
Sure.
You talk about the the new onboarding that the patient the therapist gets training,
Hmm.
comprehensive training. Then later on, you say they develop new skills. So what's the
Yes.
difference between training and skills? Explain more about that.
Okay. That's good. That's a good question. So what skills is something that we practice over time, and it's something that we develop. So when for example, let's say moving a patient from point A to point B, which requires proper body mechanics. Just because we know proper body mechanics, for example, to lift with our legs, to ensure that our patient is closer to us, that doesn't mean that it's a skill yet. it means it's a task that we can complete. But over time, after repetitive use and practice and training, we then refine that motion, and we find different ways to move them by still ensuring that we have the basic instruction that we were given and basic training. But now we refined it and personalized that. And that's what a skill is. A skill becomes a personalized instruction that we've developed for ourselves. So then we found a way to make it more efficient. Now, if imagine from a scale of 1 to 10, the amount of effort it took to move a patient was at number 7, a skilled professional can probably do it with an effort level of 3 because he knows how to use his body better. He knows the safer way to pivot and to maneuver. He knows that even if a person is 200 pounds and he weighs only 150, he can move them seamlessly from point A to point B because he knows that as he's moving the patient, he can position himself in a certain position that minimizes stress on him overall. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I love the way that you think about the personal development of the caregiver from a rookie to knowing the skill to becoming an expert at the skill. That's awesome. Thank you so much,
Yes,
Francis. I'm going to go
most
ahead and
welcome.
continue with my lecture.
All right, everyone, have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
There's a question from a participant. This is all great information. Wondering where I can start first with this training process. Um, I recommend that you go to the free caregiving Facebook site. There'll be a link in the chat, and you can get a feel for all the videos that we have and the education materials. Then you can join the VIP caregiving group has more training materials, or you can do online training. You have group online training uh, for individuals. It's $100 an hour. For businesses, it's $300 an hour. Or you can listen to pre-recorded lectures. I have lectures focused on caregiving, communication, how to take blood pressure, how to do documentation. So those are 3 ways where you can start the training. Okay, while I'm up here in front of everyone, I want to talk about a question that I got asked yesterday. Dr. Era, I'm being funny. What if someone throws a ham sandwich at you during the assisted living? Oh, well, thank you for that funny question. It seems funny now, but if it happens to you, or a patient throws a something as a sandwich or a sock or a shoe, it's very scary. It's a shock. It doesn't really hurt you, but it's just a shock to your personality, to your self-worth. But unfortunately, it happens sometimes. And so that's a manifestation of anger. So you go into the anger management move. Have a calm face, even though you're shocked you got hit by the ham sandwich, just relax your face, relax your body. Maybe this will take 20 seconds. And then say, Mr. Smith, I'm sorry that you threw the sandwich. What's going on? Are you angry? Are you depressed? It didn't taste good. Try to get them to talk. Try to get them to calm down. And then you need to find the root cause of the anger. What was it? That they don't like the food, or the food was cold, or the food was an hour late, or they don't want to eat. The medicine makes them vomit, or they have some medical problem, a breathing problem, a vomiting problem, a urine problem. So you kind of tried. Usually, you have to talk to your supervisor or to the doctor to get, you know, more of a feel for the root cause. So that's the question I had about the ham sandwich. And then another question I had: if I could take one thing away, one point away from all your teaching, Dr. Rare, what would it be? And that's an easy one: relationships. In training, focusing on patients, focusing on other caregivers, relationships. Respectful, active listening, empathy, repeat back, the one you're talking to, the other caregiver, the other patient, the family, repeat back their feelings to really get to understand them. So relationship, that's the number one. Okay, so I'm going to stop screen share and go back to my slides. Okay, we talked about the 4 types of team development. And part of the goal of this lecture series is to develop companies that caregivers want to work for. A caregiver usually has several choices who to work for, you know, and so you want the caregivers to, wow, this is an awesome company. I want to stay here. I want to learn from here. I want to stay here long term. So strong training will encourage the caregiver to stay. Caregiver support from the supervisor, flexible hours to manage work, life, home, rest. I hate the word work life balance. I hate that. There's more to life than work and life. There's home and then there's resting. Those are all 4 are important to getting a proper balance in your life and with work. And for example, one example that a supervisor told me is that the payroll company for their provider services does free counseling for the people on the payroll. So that was made available to the caregivers to help them. So that's a very smart idea by the payroll company. Payroll company is trying to retain the provider services. They want more people on the payroll so that they give that benefit to retain the provider company, and the provider company gets benefit by retaining their caregivers. So very smart on behalf of the payroll company. How do you change a caregiver's behavior? Okay, what if they're in a bad mood? What if they can't learn this one specific uh, task? What if they're gossiping about other caregivers? Well, the key thing in this is give honest and sincere appreciation. Okay, mistress. Okay, we'll call them Michael, the caregiver. Michael, uh, did you realize that you hurt the feelings of the caregiver? You bring them aside alone. Please, try to be positive in your comments. One day you may be on that side where you made a mistake and you want the caregivers to treat you good. So if you treat the caregiver, other caregivers good, if you make a mistake, we all make mistakes. I make a mistake. When you make a mistake, then the caregivers are going to treat you more respectively. Try not to criticize, condemn, or complain. It really is not the best way to change behavior and stuff. And these ideas come from a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It was written in 1910 and still a bestseller. Done in so many 30 or 40 languages it was translated into. What about corporate healthcare wellness? The corporation, uh, home provider services, caregiving facilities, home health agencies. You want to foster open communication, recognizing the team members' unique contributions. Mike, you did a great job yesterday. You prevented the fall. Monica, you did a great job in getting the woman to eat. And you want to balance empathy with patient-centered care. We'll talk about patient-centered care in the next slide. But empathy basically means acknowledging the feelings of the other caregivers or the family or the patient. Um, and then you can enhance patient outcomes. Stay calm when someone's angry, improve or stabilize a deteriorating condition, participate in good health habits, and have regular doctor checkups. You want to encourage these things for the patients. Also about corporate health, wellness, you want to organizing the living space of the patient in the facility or the patient in their home so that they're not tripping over things. Use labels. Here's the bathroom. Here's the kitchen. Here's a glass of water. Sometimes you have to label it because the patient with severe Alzheimer's gets confused, and involve the patient in decision making. What do you like, Miss Smith? Do you like looking at photographs? Do you like knitting? Do you like petting the dog? Get them involved. Have them a little concept of what they would like. Can't ignore what they want. There was one case where um, the uh, the 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 patient said, "I want to go to the bathroom," and the caregiver said, "Well, go ahead and pee pee. You have a diaper on. Go ahead and pee pee in the diaper." Then later on, the caregiver said, the patient said, "I want to go poo poo," and the caregiver said, "Well, you have a diaper. Just poo poo there." No, that's not the point. The point is that the patient wants to be independent. They want to do a little bit for themselves. Maybe they can't go to the bathroom all by themselves, but they can do a little bit. They can walk, hold your arm and walk with you to the bathroom. They can lower their pants. Maybe they can do a little bit about going to the bathroom to pee. That's the point that the patient was trying to say. Also, some patients like music, like this man in this slide. Some like singing, some like petting the dog. Find out what the patient likes and use that to cheer them up and control their behavior. Relationships are very important in caregiving, and use validation therapy. We've mentioned this already 4 or 5 times. Instead of contradicting what they say, the patient says, "Oh, the room is too cold. Oh, the diaper's too small. There's a zebra in the room. The ceiling is painted red." Just don't correct the patient. Just go with the flow. Go with their reality. Uh, just reflect back their feelings. Don't say that the room's not red. It's not cold in here. Just to agree with them. Be empathetic. Why is caregiving dangerous? We talked about this yesterday. Caregivers have 3 times more injuries compared to all other professions in the United States. Back injuries, slips and falls, shoulder and joint injuries, lifting patients, and then they have emotional injuries. Dealing with an Alzheimer's patient asks the same question 10 times. Dealing with an Alzheimer's patient that's angry. So the emotional issues also. You want to reduce your risk as a caregiver provider businesses. Remove cords from the floor. These are other injuries from slipping, tripping, falling, cuts and bruises inflicted by care recipients with dementia and Alzheimer's. Caregiver burnout is so common and it can come all of a sudden, but you need to teach caregivers the signs of early burnout, not sleeping well, you're happy, sad, crying for no reason, um, getting lack of sleep, going home, a very stressful home situation. The caregiver needs to find early signs of caregiver burnout and do something about it. May take time off, maybe see a counselor, maybe socialize, call their friends up and talk to their friends, find someone to listen to them. You need to be proactive. Francis said this several times. Already have it in your head what you're going to do if a certain thing happens. If anger happens, use empathy, not logic. Use calm body language. Be agreeable and give compliments. You're so handsome. You're so young. Here's a case history of anger management. There is one time the caregiver went into the room of the patient and she knocked lightly, not too hard, and went into the room. And the patient had a frown, and she kept going into the room to check, if it needed to be clean or the patient needed to change the diapers. And the patient was very upset that he was shocked and sad about it. And so the caregiver didn't recognize it and just kept going to touch the patient. And the caregiver grabbed her neck. And that really scared the caregiver. I can imagine I would be scared too. And so finally, the caregiver was able to release the patient away. The patient wasn't very strong, but it really was a shock to the caregiver. So of course, the caregiver notified the supervisor and told the other caregivers, "Be careful; they can get angry." A week later, the it happened again. A different caregiver went into the room, and the caregiver choked the patient. No, it was more psychological harm. There's no bruises or in the neck, but that's to me that would really scare me. And they talked to the doctor. They increased medicine for psychosis, for hallucinations, and they gave medicine for anxiety, and they calmed the patient down. And finally, there's a team meeting about anger management, and all the caregivers were informed in that unit that this patient gets upset, so there have been fewer episodes of being upset. Self care is very important for teamwork, for caregiver happiness, for relationships. So all the caregivers need to practice self care. Exercising could be as little as stretching, 3 times a day during work, stretching. Good sleep, I mentioned. After breathing, sleep is most important for life, more important than drinking water, more important than eating. Good sleep is very, very important. Social engagement, the caregiver need to call their friends. How are you doing? What's going on? Let me tell you what happened today. And social engagement with the patient too. They need to talk to their family or talk to their old friends. That helps reduce the decline of memory in Alzheimer's. Emotional awareness, caregiver needs to be aware when they're a little bit angry, when they're a little bit depressed, when they're a little bit, you know, uh, can't focus before it becomes out of control. Eating healthy can improve focus and energy level the same day. I think there was a question earlier. Do I have a suggestion for maximum hours a caregiver should work a day? In general, caregivers should work about 8 hours a day, not more. If they do need to work long shifts, a lot of caregivers do 12-hour shifts, then they should only work three three shifts 1 week and 4 shifts the other week. So it's an average of 40 hours per week. There's a lot of caregivers who work more, 50, 60 hours a week, but you're very high risk for caregiver burnout if you're working that much. So you have to balance with paying your bills and your mental health, health wellness. You have to come to terms with the balance: money, work, mental health. uh, Getting back to of monthly or weekly facility meetings. Successful meetings should define a collective identity of a group. We are a group uh, that that does empathetic communication. We are a group that puts the patient first. We are a group that does self-care. Whatever your company wants to focus on, that's a collective identity. And you want to inspire creativity and cooperation, and that's where you have open communication. If the caregiver wants to ask the supervisor a question, as long as the caregiver needs to talk to the supervisor is there. Documentation is needed to write down cases for learning later on in the team meetings, to document caregiver deterioration. 1 week, the caregiver knows the patient knows the caregiver's name and eats well. The next week, very confused, not eating at all. Needs to be documented. Caregiver beneficial actions. The patient doesn't eat, and the caregiver gives them sweets, um, changes the food from beef to eggs and gets the patient to eat. And then family communications. Every time you talk to a family, write it down. I spoke with the family, and I just a brief description of what you talked about. Family communications are so important. Here's some more about documentation. This is a sheet about documentation of the vital signs: systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, um, pulse oxygen, finger glucose, temperature. Every company has their own form that they use. This is the form that I use. Here's an event form. The event goes here at the first to the far left, then the reason for the event, and then the results. For example, the first event, the doctor visit, and the reason was diabetes, and the results was the diabetes under good control. An example, the home health nurse came to visit. She came for a checkup, and the skin nurse found sores on the bottom, on the on the buttocks, and so forth. Anytime there's a major event, a fall, going to the hospital, that's written down and documented in a journal. Here's a more complicated documentation sheet, but uh, it can be helpful. The first one is the date, then how much food did they eat? 25%, 50%, 100%. How much for breakfast? How much lunch? How for dinner? Are they sleeping at night? Today, when I did a visit 7 in the morning, found out the patient hadn't slept all night long. Are they in pain? Where's the pain? Is the pain mild, medium, or severe? The medicines, do they refuse the medicines? Is the patient confused? Do they have any severe symptoms, fever, or vomiting, and so forth? uh, I'm available to talk for individuals and corporations for to how to receive training. There's two ways to get training: uh, live online, and then the joining the caregiving group online, looking at training and talking to other caregivers, and pre-recorded lectures. Act now. Your caregiving situation can change overnight. These are the three types of online training. Here's the cost of the online training group. I will start out with 30-minute free 30-minute session with your staff at your convenience, and see if that your staff likes my training. If you order before November 21st, then the charge will be $100 an hour for a company instead of $300, and will be $50 an hour for individual. This is group training. If you order $300 for a company, you get membership in the free caregiving group, and you get free access to the pre-recorded videos. I'm recommending giving the caregivers a reward for attending the session. So this $100 per hour is a value of $500, but you're getting it for $100. And then the care living train, we give you the link to the caregiving Facebook group, and we you can have access to all the videos that I've posted, and you can email me, and we're continually uploading more educational videos. There's an anger management ebook there. There's a health assessment form, what I just mentioned 2 slides ago. There's caregiver action documentation. If a business wants to join this, it'll be $90 per month for 3 months, then $300 a month. And some businesses, well, I can't afford it now. I'm too busy now. My caregivers are too busy. What's the cost of not doing training? What if a caregiver quits? Then you have to interview, onboard them, retain them. That can be up to $5,000. What if you lose a client due to poor caregiver behaviors? You send a caregiver to a home to care for them, and the patient says, "Hey, I don't like this caregiver. The caregiver was rude, was not respectful. How much cost is there to get another client for you to serve in their home? And then lawsuits. The owner has to give deposition, there's attorney fees, penalties from the state, bad publicity. That can be up to $100,000. Here's the different links to my public Facebook group. Private is the pay group. YouTube, have a lot of content there, and TikTok. There's another question. What's the strangest or most unexpected feedback you've gotten from someone who completed your training? Um, well, one person said, Dr. Herrera, this not only applies to my caregivers and the patient with Alzheimer's, it applies to my brother and sister. It applies to my father. It applies, and yes, that's true. These are basic principles that apply in other relationships. Let me see if another surprising feedback. Um, and then I get negative feedback that Dr. Rera, teamwork is not really real. You can't teach teamwork. You have to be born with the skills of teamwork. My TikTok. I'm returning my TikTok. Just a minute. um, so they don't believe that you can improve teamwork. They don't believe that you can change a caregiver from a bad attitude to a good attitude person. But yes, it can be done. I've seen it so many times. Um, my friends, my doctor friends said, "Man, I'm sorry I hired that caregiver. Is a bad attitude, doesn't learn. I'm going to fire them and get another one." In my head, I'm thinking, okay, yes, this is not the best caregiver in the world, but I want to train the one to become part of my team. That's how you make a caregiver loyal to you. That's how you make a strong team. You can't always find the best caregiver with the best experience. Sometimes you have to start with someone with less experience. Okay, that's all I have for today. Thank you for staying. I really enjoyed all your questions and I love teaching. And thank you so much. See you next time. Bye bye. Bye bye.